What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and I wanted to cover the next game for the first week of the NFL season. And for practical purposes, I am going a little out of order. Usually, I'd wait till Sunday to cover this, or later in the week, as it's a Monday night game and we have time. Also, sometimes with divisional games, I like to see how the other teams in the division do, and the upcoming schedule. I feel like that could help. So it could be a contingent type game. But I want to cover this game because I know a lot of people are interested in this game. And as I said, right after, it's probably my second, maybe my third, right after the 49ers Steelers. I like those games because of the lines. I like this game for a few reasons, mostly just narratives and things of that nature. But to my symbolism addicts, don't fear. I have a couple very interesting pieces of symbolism that I found from this game, so I'm going to go into that as well. So, first off, this is a very close one. It's one of them that typically it's better not to play because we're going into the year, and I don't think the line is that suspicious. You could say, oh, well, Buffalo should be a bigger favorite, but you have to remember the way the Jets are being pushed, and then you add Aaron Rodgers, and anything could happen. So, personally, I think the Jets are going to win this game. I think the line, like I said, if anything, it's slightly light, where maybe it should be like 3.5, 4.5, but nothing crazy. It's about right. But I like the Jets because, again, they do love to push the narrative, even though it's New York. It's not that far of a distance from each other. They do love to push the narrative that the home team in these division matchups is going to win. And I'm going to go into some other games where I think that's going to be the case. They play each other twice. The home team probably wins both games. They're treating Aaron Rodgers differently this year. It's different than normal, and it's different than the normal veteran quarterback goes to another team. I can't really put it into words. It's just a vibe that I notice. There's certain times it just feels different. I went into it with my last video on Coco Golf. You know, they're always doing these pushes, and then they never really, as obviously the people aren't going to win every time, but sometimes it just feels different. And this time the Coco push feels different. It feels like they are completely committed. With Aaron Rodgers, I don't think they're going to win the whole thing, but it does feel different, where I think for like the first time in a very, very long time, people are going to be like, wow, the Jets are a good team. As somebody who, when I thought the game was real and not scripted, from being from Philly, I basically had three choices and wound up being a Jets fan and watched them until I, reached the age of reasoning and started to realize that it was kind of messed up in my teenage years. But the thing is, the Jets have never been portrayed as an amazing team. The best I remember, even with, Favre, they were laughed at. So anyway, I think that this is not going to be a repeat of Favre. It's going to be one where Rodgers does make the Jets significantly better. Now, the reason I think Rodgers is going to have a good year is because last year he obviously went through it. And I could see at least a quarter of the games he played and he sold. And the media pitched it as, oh man, these young guys are letting him down. So what does he do? He goes to a team with young guys that he's never played with. That makes a lot of sense, right? But even putting that aside, with the Packers, it was all about the young guys letting him down. I watched him completely miss open receivers and then yell at them. And I'm not talking they ran the wrong route. I'm talking he throws the ball out of bounds when they're running straight, a go route down the field. They run a slant and he throws it way over their head. They're in field goal range, and almost every time the man's getting sacked out of field goal range. He did so many things to actively throw the game, and the sack out of field goal range is one that you guys, hey, look, indirect sponsor. No, I'm kidding, but maybe I don't even know how they work, to be honest. I don't know if you reach out to them, if they reach out to you. I would never care to do them anyway, but yeah, I always found that interesting. Maybe I'll learn more of the behind-the-scenes stuff as we go on. But anyway, so I just find it one of those things where you can see, and for me, it's not the interceptions. It's the sacks out of field goal range. Matt Ryan took a ton of them, And Rodgers was the king of them last year. It's 3rd and 6. The only thing you can't afford is a sack. You're at like the 36-yard line. Bam, 43. Now you got to punt it, and it's a 20-yard net. It happened a lot. So I'm going to see if they do that this year with other quarterbacks. And the other reason I like the Jets, besides, so Rodgers, the reason I think he's going to have a good year is because I think he was punished for not getting vaccinated. Cole Beasley is on the Bills. He moved around. I don't know if he's back on the team. I think he retired, and then I don't know. He might not have come back. People just retire now, and they're back the next week. But Beasley refused to get vaccinated, and then we know what happened with his teammates. So I'm wondering if players that were punished are going to start suddenly not be punished. We're already seeing it with Novak in tennis. He was told, okay, you can compete in the Open this year. He just went to the finals of Wimbledon, and I think he's going to get his redemption because of being punished. I think they might have some leverage now, is what I'm saying. You have Rodgers, and then you have Kyrie. So we'll have to see how the three of these guys do. If the three of them just, if Djokovic starts winning and he's, beating Alcaraz in the Open, and Kyrie, and Luka are looking awesome to start the year, and Rodgers starts off like 5-0, we might be able to start seeing some commonalities and seeing politics plays a much bigger role than people understand. Now you got DeMar in his home. I think they're going to save his win, and the first win they get for their first home game. So you might say, well, they got DeMar, they're never going to lose. But I think this is going to be more one for the Jets. And while I'm on the topic, you might as well just hammer DeMar to win Comeback Player of the Year. As long as the guy goes out there and doesn't die again, he's going to win Player of the Year or Comeback Player of the Year. There's nobody that could even make an argument. You have players that are going to play undoubtedly better, but they're not going to look at his stats comparatively, and he's probably going to have much better stats. I'm not saying he's not, whatever the hell his name is, but I do think that they're going to basically say, yeah, he was dead. They won't say he died because that goes against their narrative, even though he did technically die. They're going to say, he was in the hospital clinging to life, and now, he did whatever. So I think that's the reason he's starting off as like minus 200, is because it's just that obvious. They're already going to give it to him irregardless of how he or anybody else plays. So you might as well hammer that now. Now, besides the fact that I think they're going to make the Jets a good team, and I think they're going to reward Rodgers, and I think they're going to make the Bills not so good this year. So I'm not saying them and the Chiefs are both going to miss the playoffs, because if you know my opinion on the Chiefs, I already put it out there several times. I don't think they're making the playoffs. I know it sounds nuts, but again, if Brady couldn't go his whole career without missing the playoffs, neither can Pat. And Brady's was right in the middle of his first Super Bowl dynasty, so I think it makes sense you do the same to Pat. Now, I think Josh Allen's going to have a significantly worse year, and the reason I think that is just this ridiculous change of attitude towards Trevor Lawrence. This guy was unanimous, mid to top tier, same as Herbert, same as Watson, same as Tua. Just, a good quarterback that's on the rise. They didn't have him in the same category as Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. Now suddenly they're like, yeah, Allen's pretty good, but man, Lawrence, he's the greatest. Oh, what an amazing guy. I really don't understand. He played good last year, but there's nothing to base this off of. I mean, Josh Allen's the guy who has put on the bangers against Kansas City. He's the guy who 2 years ago had that ridiculous playoff game against Kansas City. Last year, very few games he didn't play well. He sold some games, of course. But there's nothing at all. I just think Buffalo, it's a saturated market for football right now, and I don't think they're going to really ever give the Bills much of a run as far as winning championships or anything like that. And I have a feeling for the next couple years, they're going to slowly have Josh Allen go from being the second best quarterback, which is where they had him, to maybe not even the top 5, where they just kind of replace him. Maybe because Lamar is going to play this year, they don't need Josh Allen as much. I'm not sure the reason, but again, the flowers for Trevor Lawrence have been laughable. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. Actually, we did really well with him. If you go back and watch, you can just search like if you type in after my name in the search bar, Jacksonville Jaguars live prediction. I predicted him coming back and beating the Chargers when they were down 3 scores because of the way the game was looking. Sometimes you can tell by pace. So it's not against Trevor Lawrence. It's just something I've noticed. You go from treating a guy like he's average to elite, and then you start treating a guy like Allen that's elite apparently, and you start treating him like he's average. I just put 2 and 2 together, and I feel like, okay, Bills maybe have a decent season, nothing crazy, and Josh Allen gets outperformed by Trevor Lawrence, who it's been posted by, I think Nick LaFleur is the one who brought it up to me, and I agree. I think Lawrence is a great pick for MVP. They're really trying to push that narrative, and it makes sense, in my opinion, for him to win it. In one of the few years, Mahomes is probably not going to win it, and Josh Allen's probably not going to win it. So, as I alluded to earlier, to my people who love symbolism, I explained this before. I don't use gematria, symbolism, things like that. I don't go out of my way and try and find things. Oh, let me add up the capacity and then see what that comes out to. I don't do that stuff because that will lead you down a rabbit hole. It really will. And everything is multi-coded. And within seconds, I could interlude these numbers and find out how they're all significant. But when I find some interesting things, especially if I'm a linguist, so that means I love language. And when I see double speak, double entendres, things of that nature, I do pay attention. So if we remember what happened to DeMar, he's a reserve safety and he collapsed, right? And something else that has safety reserves collapsed on 9/11. So right off the bat, I found it interesting. And then I realized that they were collapsed by jets. At the Twin Towers, of course. They were collapsed by jets. So I find it really interesting. Then I thought the fall of the dollar, because I was thinking of safety reserve, those things, collapse. And then I thought, Buffalo Bills, dollar bill. So I know it sounds funny, but when I see more than a couple synchronicities and they happen to fall on 9/11, they could have picked any 2 teams to play on 9/11, but they always seem to go with New York or like the Eagles or something. I found it really interesting. So I like the Jets to beat the Bills. And again, I'm not saying it's 100% concrete, but I already liked them. And then I thought of DeMar, and I thought of, again, safety reserve. I thought of the Federal Reserve, the dollar, the bill. And it makes sense. The Jets are what collapsed the World Trade Center on 9/11. And I think they're going to collapse the Bills here on 9/11 and beat them. So my play is the Jets to win this game. I really like them. Obviously, I'm going to be taking the money line to get a couple little more points on my odds. It'll be about plus 115, 120, so it'll eliminate the juice. And yeah, I just don't see why the Jets would lose this game. If they really want to get the public thinking the Jets, this is their year, yeah, they could lose a close one, I guess. But their first game at home, and again, the way that Rodgers has been treated, and in my opinion on the fact that I think he might have some leverage due to, basically having rights stripped away from him for taking his own personal stance on the vaccination. I do think he's going to win. And I think it's tied in, too, because he put out a cool tweet about, I guess, Novak's Djokovic is, trending now, or it's been trending. And Rodgers basically said, the guy is a hero. He's going, he's about to be going to another U.S. Open Finals, and he never backed down for a second. So now, I don't think Rodgers would have been able to come out and say that. If you remember, after he commented on Rogan, they gave him that goofy haircut, and he started playing like crap. So, again, I don't think it's a coincidence, all these weird things that happen. So, I think he has some leverage back. If you remember Kyrie, they were saying, he wants out of Dallas and this and that. They stopped that talk, and I think him and Luka are going to do good together. I think Kyrie's got leverage, and I think Novak's got some leverage too, and that's why he's going to win Wimbledon. So I think the players that were, had their rights at the very least restricted. I think they're going to have some leverage now, especially when you throw in what with DeMar, them not wanting any questions. You got Bronny now too, so it's not just the NFL. So yeah, from almost every angle, I like the Jets in this game. I think the more the public will probably be, it'll probably be pretty damn close to even actually. You might have a couple more people taking the Jets, but as we saw with Colorado, TCU, and I noticed this too because with so much live action, with how they can manipulate props and the over/under and all these different things, even if people are slamming a team going into the game, Vegas is still going to get paid. And I always say narratives reign supreme. That's what they care about. They care about narratives. So, yeah, nothing crazy. I just wanted to cover this one because I know a lot of people wanted, my opinion on it. And I thought it had a lot of interesting commonalities and a lot of interesting double meanings. And I do think double meanings are where a lot of these coded rituals are used. Quick example, Tony Saragusa, when he died, Shannon Sharp kept saying how he had the biggest heart. Oh, he had the biggest heart. He had such a big heart. And the guy died of an enlarged heart. So I'm not saying that's concrete proof, but they do it more than you could imagine. They will do it and they'll just happen to say something that has a perfect double meaning, and it just happens a lot. So for this reason, like I said, I found the whole DeMar situation interesting, considering he's a safety, he's a reserve, and Buffalo's name is the Bills, and they're going up against the Jets, who crashed. And I guess if you had to pick a winner between the Jets and those towers, it has to be the Jets. That happened on 9/11. All of it's very interesting to me, and I think the Jets are going to win this game. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, although I'm not as locked down as I've been, because I've learned that obviously we have to reassess things, and I always reassess anyway. But I went into why I like the Niners and Ravens, or I like the Ravens. I'm looking at the Raiders on the AFC side, but I had the Jets completely ruled out. But if stuff starts happening, I'll be the first to say, hey, you know what? I think they might actually do it. But yeah, I don't see the Jets making a Super Bowl run, but they might make their first championship run in a very long time, or at least win the division or something of that nature. I don't think the Bills are going to win the division. I think they're going to get a wild card spot, but I could be wrong there. But again, I could be wrong about anything. But I do think that the Jets are going to have a good year, and it makes sense to start them off 1-0. It's funny, I'm guessing I genuinely shut out the news. And people say that, but I mean it quite literally. There will be things happening 5 feet from my house that I won't know about because I just don't even follow the local news. And apparently, my Coco Golf video had people just coming in from the woodwork that I've never seen on my channel. So I'm guessing that that's been a politically driven issue, which I knew she was kind of political anyway. But as far as tennis goes, now I have even more less doubt that Coco's going to win. If you didn't see my last video, a bunch of people that don't even watch sports or know what our channel's about, we're all getting upset. Oh man, how it could never be because Coco's talented. She's just so good. And I guess some people just don't understand that. Just like movies, just like the news, just like anything else, sports can and will be rigged. So if it's your first time watching my channel and you think I'm covering these games from the aspect of who should win these games, then I'm not sure by the titles how it didn't immediately give it away, but you're on the wrong channel. You could feel free to keep watching, but I'm never going to tell you who's going to win because they're better, because that just never happens. If that did happen, gamblers would never be losing. It's just that simple. I don't know about you guys, but when I play ping pong against somebody that's significantly better, it's not like I get lucky and get them and win a set 11-8 and then win a third set and then I lose too. No, that guy kicks my ass. My cousin's better than me at ping pong and he beats me every single time. And I know it sounds like a goofy example, but when you have a tennis player who is significantly better than other players, take TFO just getting eliminated. I'm not saying it can't happen, but you do need to look at it and say, okay, maybe this is kind of odd that all these players are getting eliminated early, setting up Coco to win the U.S. Open in Arthur Ashe. setting history, going into an election year. Like, people don't understand all these things, and how ridiculously obvious it is, how the seeds have been planted from the very beginning. You know, they started getting Coco politically outspoken several months ago, basically calling tennis racist, which is fine. You know, from what I can tell, she has like 98% of white fans cheering for her, but it is what it is. But with the Arthur Ashe Memorial, with them wanting anything, like nothing more, to have news, to have a new draw, especially if it's going to be someone to drive a political point home, I have no doubt now to believe Coco's going to win, because of obviously the fact she must be going nuts on the news. Again, because there's people that are commenting politically on my channel. Like, I made this channel to avoid politics, and I got people bringing politics here saying, oh yeah, you know, neo-Nazi over here thinks Coco can't win on her own, and all these different things. So I find it interesting, but nothing changed my mind there. And using my wrestling logic, Coco's going to obviously be an overwhelming favorite. She's being portrayed as an underdog, which, yeah, I guess she is. It's kind of laughable when, you know, when you have anybody as good as her being portrayed as an underdog. Most people that are ranked ahead of her are out. So whoever she winds up matched up against, she's likely going to be higher ranked. She could draw Sabalenka, I guess, but yeah, they're doing this whole shtick where she's the underdog. And then I noticed Djokovic is the ultimate heel. He's the ultimate, you know, people just don't like him, which is probably the reason I like him. But so to me, it makes perfect sense. You have a good guy win, you have a bad guy win, right? So Coco's the underdog, the one everybody wants to win. And then Noel's just going to stomp on the dreams of Carlos, or maybe even Shelton. But I still think it'll be Carlos. So you got a good guy win and you have a bad guy win. And you have someone from each political side. Even though it has nothing to do with politics. The left worships Coco, and you got people on the right that are worshiping Novak because of decisions they've made, because of things they've said. So I think it makes perfect sense to have that happen, to have Noel win again. I went into why I think Noel's going to win outside of that. But for Coco, I think it stems politically, and I think they really want to make sure she wins get people behind an American player, because just as Isner's retiring, we just happen to have Coco here in the U.S. Open of all places. The significance of Arthur Ashe, of course. So you have, again, the American tie-in, and that desperate on need to replace Serena. So that's just my opinion. I wanted to cover that because I've never had a video that had, like, again, people just not even talking about sports, and they're trying to rebut me using, oh, well, this person's serve is better, and that's why. And they're, you know, she's younger than her opponents and quicker, and I'm like, that's great, you know. So, you know, I watched Remember the Titans, and the one team looked better than the other one. It doesn't mean they're going to win. And the same thing is true for, you know, rigged, scripted tennis. So, yeah, I'm never going to pick a game who based off of who's the better person, who's the better team. Just for anyone watching this channel that might be confused and think that I'm like a regular person who actually thinks these sports aren't scripted. So, yeah, I just wanted to double down on that. I still think it's going to be those two in the U.S. Open. Probably Coco Sabalenka. They'll probably have her go up against someone that they can say is better. That way her win doesn't seem like, oh, well, she just got an easy draw. And then on the other side, I think it's going to be Noel beating Alcaraz. But they did just push how Ben Shelton and TFO made history for like the second time, which, again, that makes it not history, but they want to do anything they can to put together any semblance of a narrative. So, again, they made history for the second time by being I didn't even know, Shelton looks like, I guess he's mixed, but two black guys playing on Arthur Ashe Stadium. It was Blake and Young, I think, before them two. So I remember Blake too, because he used to have like long hair and then he was bald. I think he did it to honor cancer or something. So I always liked Blake, but yeah, I found it interesting that they just put that article out, especially when it's already been made. So again, it's not history, but they're going out of their way to force it. They just did it with the Super Bowl. So, like, you know, it's really interesting. You know, I don't look for these things. They're more so slammed down my throat. So I think Noel plays the villain, you know, I guess like the Joker, if you want to say. Not not the Joker from basketball. I mean the actual Joker. And I find it interesting too because they had, you have both Jokers and they're both kind of positioned as villains. The two Jokers in sports. Obviously the Nuggets Joker, he beat everybody's favorite Jimmy, and now Jimmy's rooting on all these tennis players. He was actually rooting against Djokovic because he wanted Alcaraz to win. And you got the Joker in tennis, who everyone seems to see as a villain as well. So I find it interesting, a lot of the parallels that we see in sports. So, yeah, nothing has changed my mind on that. You can still get in at plus odds on either of those players. And the Jets are going to be plus odds too, so I like the Jets in this game. I'll be covering more of my, the upcoming football games. Probably Bengals-Browns is coming next. Kind of back and forth on that one. I could see a good case for either team. Really comes down to if Joe Burrow is going to play or not. It's probably going to be a deal where if he plays, I fade them. If he doesn't play, I pick them. Sounds goofy, but it just happens to work. So we'll see what happens there. And yeah, I would get in on, I think between Coco and Novak, at the very worst, you split. I cannot imagine they both don't win. And as I brought up before, Coco was getting plus 270, but then she won today, so she might be getting like plus 180. If she's still getting plus 2 or better, you do have hedge opportunity to play her. All she has to do is make the finals, which I believe she will, and then you play the other person. You're probably going to profit either way. That's what I do with Djokovic. It sets me up where if I need to, if I'm feeling uncomfortable about the final, I can hedge with who I believe is going to be Alcaraz. And that's basically how I set it up for Wimbledon too. So yeah, Jets is my pick. It's going to be for 1 unit, just so you know, a leg 1 unit. So whatever your unit size is, just one of those. And yeah, I don't think there's nothing that I don't think I didn't cover regarding these two. I might have missed a thing or two. Sometimes if I do, I throw it in the comments. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really entertaining game. We're probably going to see just 2 sound teams. I think they want to show the Jets as a very sound team this year. I think they're going to be like the Lions of the AFC, the young, hungry team that has all the potential in the world. The difference is they got Rodgers. So I think that's interesting. So as I always say, take care and happy earnings.